If you thought the Marvel vs. Capcom series had a complicated history, hold on to your butts, because the tendrils of the King of Fighters series is like a fighting game, exquisite corpse. King of Fighters series origins actually stem from somewhere between 2 and 6 other franchises. In 1991, Street Fighter II: The World Warrior had revolutionized the fighting game landscape, but some of its most famous conventions originated in its predecessor, 1987's more rudimentary, mostly forgotten Street Fighter, developed by game design director Takashi Nishiyama. But by the time The World Warrior came around, Nishiyama had long left Capcom for SNK, where he developed his own rival franchise, Fatal Fury. But unlike World Warrior's pretty basic plot, Fatal Fury conjured up a weirdly convoluted narrative about orphan brothers Terry and Andy Bogard, who live in SNK's favorite fake depressed American hamlet, Southtown. The brothers witnessed their adoptive father's murder at the hands of a crime lord named Geese Howard. They decided to follow in their dad's footsteps and become master martial artists. And a decade later, they decide they're going to enter a King of Fighters tournament that Geese is staging. They successfully fight through the tournament, and Terry ends up getting closure and revenge, killing Geese by jump kicking him off the ledge of a tower. The following year, in 1992, the creative team developed a sequel, Fatal Fury 2, featuring a mysterious German man looking to take the hurt to whoever killed Geese. But SNK also developed a game called Art of Fighting, which was, amazingly, a secret backdoor prequel to Fatal Fury, set in the 1970s. And Art of Fighting 2 is set around a slightly younger Geese Howard, a couple years before murdering Andy and Terry's dad. But Art of Fighting had introduced an entirely new set of characters for audiences to get involved with. And while SNK worked on sequels in both of their slightly time-shifted franchises, they also developed an entirely separate sort of crossover series called The King of Fighters. This series folds in not only characters from Fatal Fury and Art of Fighting, but also other non-fighting SNK games like Ikari Warriors and Psycho Soldier. They initially envisioned it as a side-scrolling beat-em-up a la Double Dragon, but instead decided to use it to innovate what would become the new hotness in fighting games shortly thereafter, the team battle, where instead of having 3 rounds of 1v1, you had a 3-on-3 fight that only ends when all 3 are eliminated. The basic plot is once again just a martial arts tournament, but this series gets out of pocket quick and somehow starts folding in supernatural murders and blood pacts and guardians of magical treasures sealing away a mythical 8-headed serpent taking human form who wants to destroy humanity. You know, that sort of thing. This, as you might imagine, operates on an entirely different chronology and narrative universe than Fatal Fury or Art of Fighting, which were both also simultaneously continuing their own stories at around the same time. King of Fighters has evil businesswomen and famous American athletes and reincarnated crime bosses and all sorts of shit as they released new entries year after year. During King of Fighters 96, they had modified the game system for its protagonist, but the previous moveset was still well liked, so they put both versions of the same character as playable options in King of Fighters 97, which proved to be such a popular decision that they decided, for King of Fighters 98, to do away with plot altogether and just give the fans a pure slab of fantasy booking, bringing back fan favorites from across the spectrum, including characters who had previously died, such as Ultimate KOF boss Rugal Bernstein. The following year, King of Fighters 98 was ported to the Dreamcast, cleaned up with gorgeous three-dimensional backgrounds, running 60 frames per second, under the slightly confusing title of The King of Fighters Dream Match 1999, to match the year it came out. There is an actual King of Fighters 99, and it does get released for the Dreamcast in the US under the title The King of Fighters 99 Evolution, which made it stateside in April of 2001. By which time there had already been arcade releases of The King of Fighters 2000 and The King of Fighters 2001, neither of which will make it to US consoles at all. You can tell that this one is for the fans, because despite being plotless, Dream Match opens with a nearly 10-minute long, specially designed anime introduction. Just characters you're already supposed to know, silently punching each other and posing over and over. This entire product is a charmingly insular experience. There's almost zero translation from Japan outside of a heavily accented There's no direct introduction or dossier on any of the characters, and there's so many of them you can barely see who they are before you pick them if you're not familiar. There are a couple characters that speak in English, including the only two black people in the game, one of which is named Heavy D, and the other hits people with basketballs. Come on, Japan. I've harped on precision as the defining feature between the haves and the have-nots so far on this Dreamcast project, and fighting games really provide a stark contrast. Some games have it, some games don't. This King of Fighters is, like Mortal Kombat Gold and Virtua Fighter 3 TB, an expanded, cleaned-up port of a slightly older game. But unlike those games and their fairly ugly 3D models, Dream Match is cool, crisp 2D sprites, which makes it immeasurably more appealing visually, as well as razor-sharp in its timing and structure. There's a fluidity and a pronounced character here that makes the game extremely likable. The initial reviews for KOF 98 and/or Dream Match were honestly pretty middling, but reading them back, a lot of them are taking it to task for looking basic, because in the moment, it was easy to not be impressed with yet another 2D fighting game, because that was old news, Grandpa, and big three-dimensional characters and worlds were the exciting new vanguard. But now, looking back in 2023, a lot of that 3D has aged very poorly, and the much rarer pure sprite animation is much more appealing and charming. The reviews also do cite a positive tightening of controls for this one, so it really feels invigorating, addicting. Like Marvel vs. Capcom, this is a very hard game for a novice, but one that makes you want to get better and allows you to see a path to reach it. If I want to get to know these characters past things like has a basketball or breasts with a life of their own, I'll have to dig back through the other games for their heavy, convoluted plot, because Dream Match is deliciously non-canon. If I knew who any of these characters were, I bet it would be rad as hell that I'm getting to see them in these forms going up against each other. But either way, the game runs like a Swiss f***ing watch. So even if I never get to know Mature or Shermie as human beings, I'll at least get to know how good they are at kicking people in the face. Next time, since we're on the topic of fighting games with convoluted backstories, have you met Dio?